Your seat, so I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to our next item on the program, and that's Bandsman Jeremiah Hinson. Jeremiah is no stranger to this corps, having grown up here for much of his life. But this past summer, Jeremiah had the opportunity not only to be a part of a summer service corps team that went to the Ukraine. That team we got to hear from Miguel earlier in the month, but Jeremiah was one of the leaders of that team. And I believe that God used Jeremiah in amazing ways this past summer. And so right now, we get the opportunity to hear a little bit about that.
Well, good morning. It's great to be with you and be able to share finally. Feels like it's been forever. It's probably about a month and a half. But it feels like it's been forever since I've been in Ukraine. But I'm happy to finally be able to share a little bit of that experience with you. I have kind of two kind of main points I want to touch on. Because God did so much this summer for not only my team or for myself or my life, but God's doing great things for the army in Ukraine. And there's a lot of things that I learned not only about myself but also about the army and what it's doing there and what you're doing to actually have a part in that. So I want to share a little bit of that with you. The first thing that God really showed me is the simplicity of his power. We started off in a small village in Clearwater that Miguel talked about, where our job was literally to go to a park and talk to kids. We are given a couple things, some balls, soccer balls, but specifically we were given one American football, which became pretty much the pinnacle tool that you could use with kids in Ukraine, because they've never seen or really don't have an opportunity to play with one of those. They don't really know football or how to play, which was insane to me because I've known how to play my entire life. But the first time we ever went out to a park, just taking out this football, there's about 30 kids just appear and just attack you, and then all of a sudden all you can hear is American football, and they're all going crazy, and it eventually just becomes a really good time of fellowship. And it all starts with the simplicity of a football. And that theme kind of kept happening everywhere we go. The same thing would occur. We'd go out to parks. That's one of our main things is the work that we do with kids. And we do VBS throughout the week, and then we'd always go out and try to get as many kids as we could interested in the Salvation Army. And then after a little bit of time doing that, we would try and do a VBS to kind of teach them some things and really spend quality time with them. But still a highlight of every day was usually when we brought out that football. The kids just went crazy for it. And I'll never forget this one kid in Lviv. It's an outpost. It's not really a corps. They don't actually have a corps building. They don't actually have a corps officer. They have 2 soldiers that are attempting to start a corps there. And so our job was to go out to a park every single day and attract whatever people we could and kind of do somewhat of an open air, more of just fellowship with kids. And there's one kid, he was a little crippled, and the very first day that we got there, as soon as we got there, he came over and he noticed that football. One of his arms, I don't know if it was maybe a little longer than the other or something, but something was a little different. It was a little, you could tell there's just a little bit something different about him. And so that first day, I taught him how to throw a football. And the joy of just watching him be able to succeed in a physical activity like that, you could tell that made a huge impact on him. And then throughout the week, because I had spent time teaching him, every single day there'd be new kids that would come, and he would start teaching them how to play football. He would start teaching them how to throw it. And to see the smile that he would be able to bring to other kids because of something as simple as throwing a football. It really spoke a lot into my life and a lot about the characters or the characteristics of God, and the fact that he doesn't need a corps building sometimes. He doesn't need a corps officer sometimes. All he needs is a willing heart, a smile, and maybe a football. So that's one of the things that I learned that was really kind of cool and interesting. And another thing I learned is a little bit about the complexity of God's plan. Before I had ever even been chosen to go to Ukraine, this corps had already supported a project in Ukraine. And I had no clue about this. I got to one of the corps. It's in Clearwater, the same place where the small village is at. And the first thing that we would do when we got there was to play ping pong with the kids. They had a ping pong table, and they had this new game, which I think is one of the coolest games I've ever played. But we would play with the teenagers that would come. There'd be about 10 of them or so, and we'd play this game for about an hour, and then just kind of spend a little bit of time in fellowship afterwards. And it was the highlight of my week because it was the age group that I had the most fun with. Especially when you don't speak the language, it's almost more fun to hang out with teenagers because you're both just kind of messing with each other without words. It's very fun. But little did I know, this corps, Clearwater, had actually purchased that ping pong table for that corps. And it was a project that was started before I had ever even gotten to Ukraine. That this ping pong table and one youth worker, a salary for a year for a youth worker, was paid for by this corps. And to be able to see the fruit of that firsthand, not only was it inspiring to see what the work in the Army does, but what our work does in the Army, what we're actually actively doing, what your World Services actually goes towards. I got to witness that firsthand. I got to be a part of that. And not only that, I went to another corps, and my team decided to sponsor that corps and get them a ping pong table. So it's a ministry that started with a simple project that Clearwater funded that's now spreading and starting youth programs all over Ukraine. And then, as Miguel pointed out last week, there was another project. Again, we had no clue that this was going to happen. We were actually, we'd spent a week in Ukraine in the Carpathian Mountains in tents. Had no clue, no contact with the outside world really, not really much power or anything like that. And so we got back, and Bobby and Anna Westmoreland, who were the DCs there, told us that while we were there, our corps had sponsored another project. And we had no clue that one of the people on that camping trip with us was a newly commissioned corps officer. And he was at that corps that project was supporting. So we'd seen him. He was also the worker that this corps had paid for a year to work in Clearwater. And he was now newly commissioned to this new corps, which I'm not going to pronounce because I don't know how. He was at this new corps, so we had been able to see him all summer long and had no clue that at the end of the summer we would be presenting a project from Clearwater to him. And to actually know him and to know how much that would actually mean for his first appointment, for his first ministry. And the project is simply furniture. They have a building there. They don't own it, but they're renting it. And it had absolutely no furniture, maybe a couple chairs. And they've got really good and enthusiastic soldiers there that are really excited about things, but it's kind of hard when you don't have a place to sit together and eat. You don't have a place to congregate. And so this corps sponsored that program to be able to give them furniture. And it sounds so simple to me, like you would need maybe a table, it would be helpful. But it's just something they didn't have. And to know that all summer we were spending time with this person that we were going to eventually be able to tell him, yes, my corps has been able to sponsor this project for you. And through that experience, through that entire summer, and be able to see firsthand where our World Services goes to, it really taught me a lot about God. It taught me a lot about the complexity of his plan. I had no clue I was going to Ukraine. And I don't think the corps did. I don't think Zach knew in any way that Miguel and I would eventually be in Ukraine serving at the corps where we were sponsoring projects. But God knew that. God knew that one day you guys would give World Services, and that World Services would pay for a project that I would one day be able to go and be a part of and see fruit in. And then I would also be able to be there to bestow and just kind of explain how our corps is continuing to do more work in Ukraine. And the whole time not having a clue that I was going to be a part of any of that. It just really taught me about not only how the Army works, but how God works. The simplicity of his plan and the complexity of his plan. I know that's kind of a paradox, but that's God. But to really understand that every step that I take in my life, God's already planned out. Every step that our corps takes, every step that Captain Bell makes, every step that's happening, he's already planned out. He's already got a reason for that. And he's got lessons that he's going to teach people through that. And he's got lives he's going to change through that. Something as simple as giving money for world services. So I loved my summer, and I could probably talk about it forever. If you have questions, ask me about it, because I'd love to tell you. Ukraine's quite a complex place, and the army there is very exciting, and there's a lot of passion there. Which is still inside of me. So I'm not going to take up your time now to do that, but you can ask me about that. But those are just kind of a couple of the things that God taught me and God showed me throughout my summer. Thank you.